Okay, the records are now open. Okay. So I was trying to figure out your origins, and I actually don't think you originated in Lyra. Okay. Even though it would make sense, there you do have genetics from Lyra, but you didn't originate from there because I was picking up Aldebaran. Okay. And Aldebaran is in the constellation of Taurus. It's in the same constellation as the Hyades, the Pleiades, Apollonia, some of the other star systems. Taurus is a big constellation. So you have a little bit of genetics from another universe, okay, because there was beings from another universe that ended up getting stuck in our universe and settled in Aldebaran, and those were the doll people, okay, great space explorers, by the way. So they were kind of, Aldebaran people were a mix of that race and a mix of Lyran people, Lyran refugees that escaped the wars. Okay, so you kind of have a combination of both going on. So your first physical incarnation as a soul, was actually in Aldebaran. And Aldebaran culture was very much space exploration focused. They kind of carried the traditions from their doll ancestors. The doll people, just to give you a background on the doll peoples, because I find them fascinating. They were ancient space explorers that came from a different universe. So when I looked in the records, it's like their universe is kind of like the opposite of ours. So they have dark stars and light skies. I don't know. It's kind of bizarre, but they do have planets. But their planets kind of look different. It's kind of hard to describe because I don't even have a frame of reference to describe what their planets look like. But these people were humanoids, okay, and they were very, very tall. They were kind of white in color. I don't know. Everything about them was kind of whitish. Even their hair was white, and they were tall, and they kind of looked like ancient Nordics. They had, high cheekbones, kind of slanty eyes, very powerful builds, okay? These people were so technologically advanced that you couldn't even tell there was technology around them. I mean, that's how advanced their technology was. It was like they didn't have like all the machinery and the components and everything else. It was kind of like more interconnected with them, or interconnected with the reality that they created for themselves. And so I always like to say that the doll people were kind of like our original minimalists. They had very simple lives. They liked things very kind of streamlined, simple. So if you're Earth, and they had a lot of misadventures on Earth because they didn't understand our culture because we were so primitive compared to them. But it's a really interesting story, and you might enjoy it, even though some of it's kind of corny, but some of it is actually quite profound. There were some very profound moments in that movie. But yeah, it's a French subtitled film, so but you can follow along in English, so you know what's going on. But for some reason, when I watched that movie, it reminded me of the doll people. So some of you weren't a doll, but your ancestry came from there. So that's why I'm giving you this background information, okay. Because your ancestors in Aldebaran were doll people that somehow, because they were space explorers, got lost in a portal, and they ended up in our universe, and they were trying to find their way back home, and they couldn't find their way back home, so they asked for help from the Galactic Center, And so the beings from Galactic Center suggested, I think they looked for the portal for many, many years, couldn't find it. So they suggested, well, maybe you just want to make your new home here. And so they gave them Aldebaran. So then during the Lyra Draconian Wars, when the Lyran people were escaping and trying to find a new place to live, some of them ended up in Aldebaran, and the doll people knew what it was like to be displaced. So they were like, yeah, you can stay here with us. Yeah, be part of our family, because they were very advanced beings, they were spiritually advanced as well. So the Aldebaran people is kind of a mix of doll and Lyran. Okay, so you have kind of qualities of both. You have kind of the stoicism and kind of the hardiness of the doll, but also kind of the sensitivity and the kind of the whimsical qualities of Lyra. Okay, so you carry a little bit of both in you. Okay, so the Aldebaran people must have been an interesting mix. It was kind of like they were, sensitive, but yet also kind of tough warrior types, but so I always kind of wonder about how they what kind of motivated them to do what they did. But they did carry the traditions of the doll, so they were great space explorers. So initially in your original life, your very first incarnation, I think your parents were Starfleet members. They were part of the fleet, and so because of that, you were also part of the fleet. Okay, you probably grew up on a spaceship, I don't know, but so you were always kind of involved with these big missions. So it was no wonder that you were attracted to, I'm guessing, the Army. Were you in the Army or the Air Force?
Yeah, I was Army Special Forces.
Special Forces, yeah. So no wonder you were attracted to the Special Forces, because, and I'm prior military myself, so that's something you and I have in common. But U.S. Navy on my part. But
okay. Yeah.
So so I think you and I were attracted to that type of life because in past lives, we lived that kind of life. It seemed familiar to us. It seemed like, I like this structure. I like having missions. I like being sent to different places, getting into new adventures, that sort of thing. So, so it just seemed familiar to us. Obviously, the Galactic Federation is a lot more evolved than the U.S. Army or the U.S. Navy, so there was probably some differences, what I'm saying, but I think it was the closest thing that we can get to, here on this planet, it was like, oh yeah, that sounds fun. I think I'll do that. Then we get into it and we're like, holy shit, what did I sign up for? I was like,
that was exactly what happened.
Yeah, I was like, what in the heck oh my God, it's like, what in the heck did I sign up for here? This is not anything what I thought it was going to be. So you get a lot of disillusioned starseeds that join the military. And we're just,
absolutely.
Yeah, we're just like, holy cow. Like, what is oh man, I kept questioning myself the whole time I was in the Navy. What is a sensitive girl like me doing in the Navy? Dealing with all these assholes, and being, subjugated because I'm a woman, and all this other stuff. And but the Navy did provide me some great opportunities. I did end up, completing my degree, my college degree, and and I got some really good skills, learned some fun things, learned some really valuable skill sets, but boy, the price I had to pay, it was hard. And the price you had to pay, I mean, you paid a bigger price than I did. At least I didn't get injured, while I was in the military. I was a hospital corpsman, so I was a medic, so I was like, I wasn't in the front lines, so, but yeah, you really went through the ringer. So that was the kind of life you had in Aldebaran, where you were constantly going to different star systems. And at that time, it was mostly exploration. You know, it wasn't any particularly difficult missions. It was just, you know, hey, let's see what's in that planet, what's in that star system. You know, let's explore. And it was a lot of fun. It was just kind of like going on an extended business trip, you know, visiting some strange star system, and then, you know, collecting information, taking it back to Aldebaran, you know. So it wasn't that bad at first. I think eventually you got tired of the constant traveling. I think maybe you wanted a family, maybe you wanted some deeper, you know, more profound experiences, and you didn't want to have a family out in space. You know, you wanted something that was a little bit more settled or more meaningful. So at some point, you chose to start incarnating in the Pleiades. Okay, so
and that makes sense.
Yeah.
It definitely, there's a few places that definitely really resonate with the Pleiades.
Yeah, no, I picked up Pleiadian energy from you right away, but I was thinking, is he Lyran or did he come from somewhere else? And then when I went to the records, they showed me Aldebaran. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, because Aldebaran's actually not located not far from the Pleiades. So if you look at a star map of Taurus, the constellation, here's Aldebaran, and then the stars that make up the horns of the bull is Hyades, and then the Pleiades is kind of out here. It's its own little star cluster. And the Pleiades is a huge star cluster. It's like 8 light years across. It's got a lot of stars. So there's a lot more going on in the Pleiades, rather than Aldebaran, which was just one star. Aldebaran is really closely aligned with Archangel Michael. So many people that come from Aldebaran carry this spiritual warrior energy. They're spiritual warriors. They're protectors. They're protectors of the weak. You know, they're protectors of those that can't defend themselves. I mean, that's kind of the energy they come in with. Okay, that's kind of the energy that you come in with. So you're definitely more of a spiritual warrior, and you
deeply resonates. And
yeah,
recognizing the systems and the good that it has brought, but at the same time, there's so much that needs changed.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There needs to be people that go in to be able to stand up in a way that's helpful and healthy, and starting to introduce newer and better ways to do things. And a lot of people don't like to change, but I really embrace change and I run with it.
Oh no, I think a lot of us starseeds are like that. Even those of us that aren't system busters. I mean, we're just like, you know, chomping at the bit. Like, okay, let's bring the changes on. You know, it's like, let's get this show on the road already.
Yes.
I always tell my husband that. I'm always like, when are, you know, because he's a big conspiracy theorist. You know, he's a big truther kind of guy, and I'm like, when are these changes going to start? Because I'm getting ready. I mean, I'm just like, I'm done with this 3D BS. You know, I'm done with this. Let's dismantle the IRS and the Federal Reserve and our fake government that we currently have. Right? I don't know what the heck's going on with our government right now, but holy cow, it's like a farce of a government. I don't know, but yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that just needs to be kind of just dismantled and changed. And I mean, I think there are good components, but I think there needs to be a change. I'm in agreement with you there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. I'm just like, and no, I'm not getting the COVID vaccine. No, I mean, I have my stupid hospital keeps asking, sending me emails. Oh, it's time for you to get your COVID vaccine. I'm like, nope, not doing it. Nope.
It brings up an interesting conversation. We have refused to do the vaccine for, I mean, a lot of the same reasons, I'm sure.
That my husband and I refuse. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and it is interesting that people that continually, like on my case, I'll get the call from the VA or seeing a doctor that wants me, they push quite heavily, and they're like, well, obviously you're educated, and they kind of do the head scratch of like, we don't understand why you don't want to get it. We understand it's your body, but they really push it heavy.
Oh no, they push it.
It's interesting.
Oh, I know, they push it. Yeah, no, because when I do follow up with my, my doctor, it's, they're always trying to push it. And I'm like, nope, not interested. Nope. And it was like that too when I kind of related to what you said about not wanting to go through the allopathic medicine route, because I was the same way, because when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing, chemo, I'm not doing radiation, I'm not doing the anti-estrogen drugs, and my doctor thought I was crazy. She thought I was crazy. She was like, how can you turn this down? This is the best medicine we can offer you. And I said, nope. I said, I want to do it the natural method. And I did.
That's an opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an opinion to go that route. It takes it takes a lot of courage to stand up.
Oh yeah, no, I had to stand up to them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's amazing that you did that. That's a very powerful statement.
Oh yeah, no, I just told her flat out no. And I mean, I had to bring my husband with me because I had a feeling she was going to try to talk me into it, and I was like, oh, I better get some backup, So, but no, I was just like, no, not doing it. I did end up having to get a mastectomy because the cancer was just too far gone. But
oh gosh,
yeah, so that was the downside. But even with the mastectomy, I was able to get into remission within 10 months. Just doing it with natural methods. So, and I've been in remission now for about 5 years. So.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm very happy. So let's look at the Pleiades, what you were doing there. Obviously you were in I think Taygeta. So that was the system that you incarnated into the Pleiades, and you might have incarnated into more systems besides that, but that's the main one that I'm seeing right now. And Taygeta was mostly kind of similar to Aldebaran in the sense that it was very technical. It was all Starfleet command. But I think what was different about about Taygeta was that the Pleiadians were all about family. They were all about community. They were all about integrating the divine feminine with the divine masculine. So it wasn't all just divine masculine. It was very, this integration of divine feminine principles. And so you were able to, for the first time, to really explore your spirituality, in this system. And I think, you were still part of the Galactic Federation at this point. But in between missions, you would spend time in Merope or spend time in Pleione and, explore your spirituality, And I think the Pleiadians were always really very generous about allowing people time to work on their spirituality. It was like, especially after a really long, hard mission, it was like you needed a break, So if you needed a few months in Pleione, they were like all on board with that. It wasn't like, oh gosh, you only get 2 weeks, and if you don't come back, we're gonna fire you and give your job to somebody else. It wasn't like that there. They were super supportive of, people being happy and to have that work-life balance. I wish we'd have more a work-life balance on Earth sometimes. It's like,
that's one of the big things that I'm such a huge proponent of, is that wellness of the work-life balance and trying to figure out how do we integrate this work that everybody is culturally used to, but we have this spiritual side that is completely neglected for all intents and purposes, the natural sciences and everything. Yet more and more science like quantum physics showing us that it's not only real, but it actually kind of comes before the physical, and
oh yeah,
trying to
absolutely.
figure out how to integrate those two. And I think when you were mentioning the different planets in the Pleiades, I'm somewhat familiar, and when I had looked before, there were a few different ones that resonated differently, and I didn't know why. But with what you just explained, that definitely kind of helps explain the reasons why a few of them
I think you spent. I think you were from Taygeta, but you had, because you were such a spiritual student, spiritual, seeker. You spent time in Maya. You spent time in, Merope and in Pleione, in Electra. So you had spent time in all of these systems. Even though you weren't necessarily incarnating into them, but you're very familiar with the Pleiadian, I guess, pantheon, the whole Pleiadian pantheon. And even though Pleiades was, kind of like their own culture, each of these star systems had their own specific culture. So it wasn't like they were completely identical to each other. I think a lot of people just kind of tend to lump the Pleiades into one bucket, and it was actually quite a tapestry of different human types, different cultures, different approaches to things, which made the Pleiades very well integrated. So that's why I think they're one of the premier, star systems, because they had learned their lessons, because they were all, Lyran refugee, descendants of Lyran refugees. So they had learned their lessons from Lyra. They were ready to create something that was even better, which they did. And they learned a lot from the Arcturians and their Andromedans, brothers and sisters, So the Pleiades became kind of this very high dimensional, beautiful star system, star asterism. But yeah, I think one of the projects that you were involved with for a while was the Orion project. A lot of us got involved with the Orion project. That's why we're here on Earth, okay? Because we've done it before in Orion. So it's like, and then our guides are like, oh, now that you took care of Orion, now you can help out Earth, and they were telling us back then that Earth was even worse, and we were like, how can that be? Earth is just one planet. Orion's a huge, constellation. How could Earth be worse? And until we got here, and then it's like, oh, now I see why Earth is worse.
This is why.
Yeah, okay. Because there's a lot of asleep people here, and there's a lot of heavy programming here. At least in Orion, the people there knew what was up. They knew they were enslaved. They knew that there was some bullshit going on. I mean, they were totally awakened to it. I mean, that's why the Black League resistance fighters were developed. But on Earth, nobody has a clue. I mean, it's just like, and it's been like thousands of years like that. And it's like, what? It's like, how can these Earth people not have a clue? It's so obvious to us starseeds, because we've seen it before in other systems, but Earth people, they've been in this, programming for, they're ancestral. It's even ancestrally, influenced. They've been under this for so many centuries and thousands of years that it's hard for them to look past it. And so, I kind of get angry when people say that, oh, most of these people are just sheeple, and they don't, they're dumb, they're stupid. It's like, no, I don't think they're stupid. I think it's just that they were heavily programmed,
Right.
And us starseeds kind of see through it, So us starseeds see through it because we haven't incarnated as much on Earth, So we weren't privy to all of that. We were privy to some programming, but not as heavy as the Earth souls, So I don't know if that makes sense.
That you mentioned that. It really does, because as I was going through my early stages of deprogramming, I was absolutely blown away. There were missions that I had been on in the Middle East, and coming back to the States and sharing information, like what I could with some family and friends. And I'll never forget, it's like, well, that's not what they said on TV. And it's like, wait, what did they say on TV? And so then that was like the first kind of dichotomy that happened with me when I started asking questions. And then as time went on, there was just more deprogramming that went on for myself. I had to learn how much truth to share with people and how much not to. Just because it's the truth doesn't mean it needs shared to that person. And I had a couple instances that got a little rough where I don't know what level of programming they had, but I would keep sharing, I guess, higher levels of truth, and literally everything around us would like start vibrating.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
And I don't know. It happened a couple times, and I don't know. And I just figured it was just because of where that person was, and it was just such a huge gap of information. But it was a really, really weird, interesting experience. It's been a number of years since something like that's happened.
It's like their really cognitive dissonance is so high that they can't comprehend it. I don't know. It's very bizarre. It's like you're saying things and it just goes over their head. I don't know. It's just like.
And it was like it put them almost like in this trauma state where they didn't know how to process it. It was a really bizarre experience.
Yeah, no, I've had that happen to me. Maybe not quite the shaking part of it, but I had that happen to me where I just see the kind of the eyes glazing over, and they just don't know what you're talking about, and it's like, how can you not know what I'm talking about? It's so obvious, and now my husband is like, always trying to share truth with people, and he's experiencing that where, it's just kind of, we talk about it sometimes, and we kind of, we're kind of like, how can they not see through this? And it's because they've been so heavily programmed, it's going to take them probably a little bit longer, I do think there are more and more Earth souls that are becoming awakened. And actually right now, I kind of expect in the next couple of years, I'm probably going to get more Earth souls that are going to be coming to me for Akashic readings. But right now, I'm lucky if I get in every 500, maybe one, that comes to me for a reading. And a lot of times they know they're from Earth. They know, they're like, yeah, I know I'm from Earth. I've never been anywhere else. Yeah. But they're awakened to the point that, they know they're spiritual, they know that there's bigger stuff going on. It's like they're one of the few Earth people that are awakened, and I'm like, oh, good, there's some Earth people that are awakening.
More, please.
Yeah, I know. It's like, please send me more. But, most of the people I work with are starseeds, so. Because right now I'm trying to help you guys wake up, but or at least remember. I think you guys are already awakened, but just remember, I guess. So I'm sorry if I said that wrong, but yeah, it's just it's just kind of like, I'm always kind of shocked when I get somebody that's from Earth. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're from Earth. Like, and you're awakened and aware, and you're from Earth, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is like a unicorn. I don't know. I mean,
unicorn.
It's like, oh, it's like, be still my beating heart. Maybe we're gonna get some awakened Earth humans here. So, but yeah, no, I think it is happening, but it's happening very slowly. It's just like, but it's almost like even a challenge to get the starseeds awakened. Because there's a lot of starseeds that are yet to be awakened. They're slowly waking up, but I think the COVID, if it served any good, it was to really awaken people. I think I've seen more awakened people since last year, like around March, than there ever has been before that. I think it did help with that. So you got involved with the Orion, the Orion project. I was there too. Yep. You were on Analtac, which was one of the belt stars. I was in Mintanka, and I think in Analtac you were, I think, trying to. I think you were helping to train the Black League resistance fighters in more advanced fighting techniques. Okay, that integrated higher technologies than what they had in Orion, because they were just getting decimated by the Empire. So it's kind of like Star Wars. So you got the outlier stars, that's kind of like the Empire, and then you got the Belt Star people. So every time I watch Star Wars, I'm like, yeah, that's Orion. Yeah, that's Orion. So it just kind of reminds me of Orion. And I think George Lucas must be like a star seed from Orion, and he just downloaded stuff that maybe old memories of his time there, and decided to call it Star Wars. But yeah, no, but I do see you were in Analtac, and I think you fell in love with somebody there. I'm seeing there was a relationship that, and I think this is the first time I think as a Pleiadian you had lots of relationships here and there, because that's what the Pleiadians did. They had free love. It was just like they loved everybody. They had it wasn't uncommon to be polyamorphous there, I guess. They had relationships with several people at once, but this was the first time you really felt like, you wanted to, this was like your twin flame or your soulmate or something. But I don't know if this person's in your life today. I don't know if you're married today. Are you married, or
Yeah, you'll be having a
session
with her later tonight.
Okay. So very cool. Is it the third reading I'm doing tonight? Yeah, I think it's because I think you signed up twice. Yeah. So
yes.
Yeah.
It was so difficult getting a booking for you. I booked 2 just to make sure, and I'm glad I did, because
it's been insane.
It was so fast within a few hours.
Oh no, it was like 2 hours. I was totally booked. I was like, that was like a record, I think. And we're going to open up the calendar next Friday, and I'm just kind of like, holy cow, I'm bracing myself for, here comes the onslaught, again, So I tell my folks, like, if you want more than one reading, you better book it. You better just book it now, just, shell out the money, just book it now, because who knows when I'll get to open my calendar up again. But I'll probably open it up again probably in August or September. So it'll probably be August. Yeah. So if you don't make it in this, well, obviously you already made it in this round, but for people that don't make it in this round, they'll have another opportunity in August. So, but yeah, I do see this is the person that you're currently with today. Okay. So this
that would explain a lot.
Yeah. So she's kind of an Orion soul, and she's feisty. She's kind of feisty. I don't know. She's
absolutely.
She's she kind of gave you a run for your money a little bit in Orion, and very beautiful soul, but not a pushover. Okay, she was a warrior.
No.
Yeah, she was a warrior in Orion. So she was. So we're getting a little bit of a glimpse into your wife's origination. Now, I do think her genetics was from Lyra and Vega, so she was kind of a blend.
Okay.
So she's humanoid, but she spent the majority of her incarnations in Orion. Okay, and I think you like the feistiness. I think in the Pleiades, the girls were really nice, and that they were a little bit too tame for you, I guess, maybe. But And I mean, you had relationships with, several, women, but I think when you met this girl, she really got your attention. She was like, she was questioning you constantly, like, why do we need to learn this? What's the purpose of this? And she wasn't being disrespectful or rude. She was just, I think Orion people have tendency to ask a lot of questions. That seems to be an Orion quality. Okay. And I think she just wanted to know what you were about, and if you were really on their side, or you were just jerking their chain or something. So she didn't trust you entirely at first. She was like, who's this, this,
exactly what happened.
Yeah, this, pansy,
incarnation.
a Pleiadian boy that thinks he's going to teach us something, So, of course, you were strong because you weren't just a Pleiadian. You had Aldebaran background, So you knew how to fight. You knew. So I think she was impressed. She was like, oh damn, maybe he does know what he's talking about. So you two got together, and that became like the love of your life. That became like, your, the person that you created this, soul contract with. Okay. That's kind of transcended lifetimes. Okay. And I think because you two were so successful together in Orion with dealing with the reptilians and the gray aliens and the, insectoids and all the other, empire beings, you decided to band together again for the planet Earth mission. So now what kind of work does she do now? I'm just curious.
She is at the Desert Botanical Gardens.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's in conservation work right now.
Oh, wow, very cool. Okay, that's very different than what she used to do before, but because she was a warrior, she was like, one of the Black League resistance fighters. She was ready to kick ass and take names, back in the day, but maybe here on Earth she decided I got to play it more subtly on Earth. I can't be out there, beating people up. So so
I think there's still plenty of that on the inside.
Yeah, no, I think so too. Yeah, no, I think the personality never changes, even though sometimes we do different types of work. So what got her into that kind of work? Was she a biologist or?
No, I think it was later when we had met at our first undergrad degree. We both had opportunities to go in different directions, and we both decided on a kind of a neutral location, which ended up being Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, interesting.
So she could do grad school, and when she did her master's there, she focused on basically environmental communication, and so then that's kind of what kind of helped go in that direction. And it's just, I think the food system is something that is so distraught in our country. I mean, globally. And it's something that really deeply resonates with both of us, with the food systems and healthier foods. And so it was just kind of going down that path and trying to make things more regenerative, more sustainable, more whole. Yet it's not like there's money to be made in the farming sector. With in comparison to tech jobs and
gotcha.
So trying to find somewhat of a balance.
I understand. And are you doing the same type of work or now?
So I start an MBA program in the fall.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It's in global business, and it's been an interesting way of how things have all kind of interconnected. And I have mixed feelings about it at times. I recognize that the systems in place need changing, and my heart is really in the environment and helping bring sustainable systems to life. But the reality is right now, global asset managers, they don't really have it on their finance books of seeing how that can be helpful, when in reality having unhealthy ecosystems affects us in every way possible. And so I get the last year, after a lot of conferences, it really became clear be like a grounding rod of balancing, kind of integrating those healthier practices, health and wellness, that work-life balance, and ecosystems, and also trying to bring in that spirituality into just the people who are stuck in the third dimension. And it's just kind of felt like that's where I've needed to go. And it's like, if in a perfect world, if I could just go live on a farm down in the tropics somewhere and just do permaculture, and the input be the output of one thing and be in a circular system. It's like, that's kind of what I just ideally want to do. But
my sister and I visited a permaculture farm in Ometepe, Nicaragua, and it was fascinating. We learned so much. Oh my God, it was so fascinating. It was one of the best trips I ever made, as far as learning beyond something that I didn't know much about before, and then I just got a whole lot of information. I mean, the lady that ran the farm was just super knowledgeable, and it was like, oh yeah, so maybe all the, we can have an ecosystem where everything affects one another, but in a positive way instead of in a negative
absolutely.
way. And it was and Ometepe is like it has a double volcano, so it's like it's in Lake Nicaragua, which is huge, and then it's a pretty big island itself, and it has two volcanoes, so there's a lot of rich soil there, and so they were growing all kinds of different plants, and it was they had little treehouse cabins we can stay in. It was really cute. So I think you and your wife would love it. You guys would love it. I have to send you the info to it. I think I'm going to.
Yeah. I'll have to send you pictures. We were in Ecuador 2 years ago, and tree houses, permaculture, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It's probably very similar to what we were at. My husband and I went to Ecuador too. We loved it. We want to go back, as we loved it so much. It was so awesome. But I just felt like 15 days wasn't enough time, to see everything in Ecuador. But
there's so much to see.
I know. It was so amazing. And we hiked up Cotopaxi. That was kind of cool.
We didn't hike it, but we took the tram or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. It's such a great view.
Oh, it is. It's amazing. Yeah. So, so we had some adventures there as well. But yeah. So it is. So I do think that as far as Earth lives were concerned, I don't think you had many Earth lives. I know there's some Pleiadians that have had a lot of Earth lives. Those are usually my healers. The healers will have a lot of Earth lives.
Okay.
You're a healer, but not in kind of the traditional way. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I think for you had to kind of pick and choose the lives that you were in, because you had a specific mission and you didn't want to get tied down with Earth karma. It was very imperative for you to not get tied down with the Earth karma. And I think it may have been that your wife might have had more lifetimes on Earth than you have, but so she's a little bit more grounded than you are. You're very starseedy.
Definitely.
Yeah, you're very starseedy. And I'm a starseedy kind of person too. I'm kind of like pie in the sky. What's the possibilities? I'd be floating out in the stratosphere if it wasn't for my husband. But
that's the way it is here.
Yeah. No, it's kind of you and I are so much alike. But yeah, it's kind of like you almost had to really kind of be judicious with the lifetimes that you had. So I do see Lemuria. I see Atlantis. I see ancient Egypt. I see the Celtic lands, during the time of the Druidic, the Druidic influences, and then, the King Arthurian influences. I see Scandinavia. Okay. So probably Viking. And I think in each incarnation you had, regardless of what it was you were doing, you were trying to push the evolution a little bit forward each time. So each time you were trying to bring in new ideas, new concepts, in whatever work that you were doing, which ranged everywhere from being in the military to maybe being a farmer, I don't know, you did all kinds of stuff, or, fighting, or exploring the new lands and in the new world, when you were a Viking, so you had like a variety of different types of lives, but I don't see hundreds of incarnations for you. I'm thinking maybe 10 or 12 at the most. I mean, it was almost like you had to keep your auric field very clear. You were not going to take on a bunch of earth baggage. You couldn't do that because then it would take you much longer to awaken in this lifetime, and you didn't have the time to do that. And none of us have the time to do that. Honestly, we had to get on board. And it was so yeah. I do see European, Egypt. There was Middle Eastern lives, a couple of them, interestingly enough. Maybe that's why you were drawn to the Middle East, or why you had to go to the Middle East. Not that you were choosing to go there, but
right.
Nobody wants to go there, but it was almost like you had to go there to, I think, close out some old karmic loops that you left there from prior lifetimes.
Okay.
And it was almost like, I know you had one question about why am I dealing with all the, the injuries and the health issues. I think you almost had to take that on to clear out some old karma. And you chose to do it all in this lifetime rather than, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. It was like you were ready to get your mission started, and you were like, give me all the shit first. I just want to take it on. And that's how we starseeds are. Okay, we're crazy. Okay, we're a bunch of lunatics, but we're like, give me all the hard stuff. I want to just deal with it all, and then I'll be ready for my mission. I'll be ready for it. So so I think you had to go through that in order to, I think, kind of I think just close out your contracts with various parts of the planet. And then you were like, okay, now I understand what my mission is. Now I understand the Earth condition. I have this bigger, broader view picture of what it is that I came here to do. So you did come here to make changes. Both you and your wife are both, like a spiritual power couple that's going to be, creating this massive change. And I think it is going to be in environment. Okay, I do agree with you. I think it is going to be in environmental sustainability or environmental concerns. So your mission is just started. I think with your wife, hers has been kind of ongoing, but she's not yet in alignment with her ultimate destiny yet. I think that's going to be coming in. So what she's doing is kind of like the stepping stone to something that's even bigger. And it's going to be global. It's going to be global. It's going to be global. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you'll find out more with her. She grew up all over the world. She's very global minded, Mexican national.
Yeah.
And so that everything you said definitely makes sense. That's one of the things that has kind of perplexed me in some ways for myself. It's like I'm having to figure out how everything works. Mm-hmm. Figuring out the system and like moving forward. It's like since I could ever remember, I've had this systems thinking of I have to figure it out in order to learn how it works so I can insert solutions as effectively as possible. And that's just been something that's just been a part of me since I can ever remember.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And I think a lot of us had to operate that way. I spent a long time working in environmental health and in public health because for some reason I had to see the broken system. Had to work within the broken system. In order to maybe understand what we don't want. How can we improve this? I think there's many natural methods we can use that will replace vaccines, that will replace, all the pharmaceuticals, that will, there's even, energetic, healings that we could do that, we don't need to go down, this very toxic route of allopathic medicine, or constant surgeries, or constant, antibiotics, or, all this stuff that's making us sicker, in a lot of ways, so, so I do think, with this new degree, it's going to propel you into the global realm. So right now, I think, your backup degree is kind of like the foundation degree, but this is the degree that's going to take you into the global realm. And there's going to be like these, these organizations, or these, these new companies that are going to be a lot more progressive. They're going to be wanting to create solutions instead of creating things that are going to be hurting the planet even more. And that's what I'm seeing in the next, 10 to 15 years. It's going to be massive cleanup work, massive. And implementing, new energy systems, new ways of farming, new ways of that are more sustainable. It's going to be, and I think you're going to have a big part in that. So you're also here to be a system builder. So not just a system buster, but a system builder. And so you and your wife are going to take us into the new world, the new age. And that's so exciting. I'm just so super excited for both of you. And we get to be a part of that. We get to see it. So I do see the potential of one more incarnation on Earth. That's something that you and your wife, because you guys are a team, will have to decide in the in-between life phase. But it'll be in fifth dimensional Earth, and it's going to be kind of a continuation, or maybe a closing out of the work that you started in this lifetime. But it's going to be taking it into the more fifth dimensional realm at this point. You're going to be laying the foundation for this in this life. But in the next life here on planet Earth, you're going to be bringing it to its fruition. Okay. And I think that'll be the end of your contract. Okay. But fifth dimensional Earth is going to be a lot better than third dimensional Earth. It's going to be like a paradise compared to what we're dealing with now. But that's something I think you and your wife, because I don't see like 100% this is going to happen. I see maybe 50-50. Like, if you think things are I think it depends on how much work you're able to accomplish in this lifetime. So if you get to the point where it's kind of like, I think we did good in this lifetime, I think, we got Earth on the right track, then you're probably just going to end up returning to the Pleiades. Okay. But if it's kind of gotten to the point where, we got a little bit more work to do, maybe we need to stay a little bit longer, then you might be staying here for another lifetime. But at this point, Earth is going to be well on its way to becoming, a global, or, an intergalactic, member of the, the galaxy. So, so things are going to be quite a bit different. But, and I do kind of see that I think your wife is not going to return she's not going to return to Orion. Okay. Even though that's where she's from, or that's where she spent a lot of lifetimes in. I think she's going to probably go to the Pleiades with you. I think she's going to go wherever you're going to go. That's kind of what I'm seeing, is that she kind of did her time in Orion, so so she's kind of like, okay, now I'm ready for something a little bit more elevated than what I had before. So and it was kind of like she had more lives on Earth because she had more lessons, or more I guess things that she had to clear out from her Orion lives. Okay. So with her, it was more like maybe 50 to 100 lives on Earth, but I think in every one of them, she was always on the light path. So she was always trying to do the right thing, to whatever capacity she could, but because sometimes in Orion, the Orion lifetimes were hard because sometimes it was such duality consciousness that sometimes you had to do bad things just to survive. It was how it was in Orion. It was, and so you kind of have this symbiotic relationship with some really dark beings because you just had to survive, and sometimes you were spying on each other. There was like, well, you had to pretend to be one of them in order to spy on them, and so it was kind of a crazy place sometimes. There was a lot of deception in Orion as well. It was kind of interesting, but yeah, no, I think for you, you're just getting started on your mission, so this degree will be like the final, training that you need to have to kind of take it to the next level. And by the time I think you graduate, I think there'll be kind of new industries or new bio industries or new ecosystems that are going to be in place that, it's like the job for you doesn't exist yet, but it will.
This is reassuring because that's literally what has been resonating and putting faith in, is that it's like everything is being prepared so that I will be stepping into a newly created type of a position. Everything that you said definitely resonated. And then also it felt like everything has been building, that there's just been back-to-back lesson after lesson after lesson. It's felt like just relentless in a lot of ways, and to the point of like, is this going to end? Is it always going to be like this?
Yeah, no, I think it's just beginning. I think things are going to get progressively better, so even though it seemed like in the last few years you went through really hard times, and I think a lot of us starseeds did. I know I did, but we went through some hard times, a lot of health issues, a lot of stuff we had to just kind of clear out. It's going to get progressively better. You're going to feel like, gosh, it feels like more fifth dimensional. Things are starting to feel lighter, and things are going to manifest faster, and things are going to look brighter and more. It's just going to seem like we're going to continue transitioning into that fifth dimensional reality, and people are going to be even more interconnected with each other, and interconnected with not just each other, but also the planet, with the Earth, and it's going to be beautiful, I think. But we do have to clear out a lot of stuff. So the next few years are going to be kind of rocky, but then I think it's going to get progressively better, and it's going to be exciting to see the changes. So unfortunately, we are getting close to the end of our time. Any last questions before we wrap things up today?
Maybe spiritual guides that I have.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can check on that. Okay, it's interesting. You have some ancient doll guides that were like your ancestors, that even though you never incarnated as a doll or you weren't from there, they're like ancient ancestors. They were like the original Aldebaran colonists or something. So they were like your ancestors from back then. And then I do see Aldebaran guides, and then I see mostly Pleiadian, so quite a few Pleiadian guides, mostly Galactic Federation, but also some some spiritual teachers, some priestesses from Merope. So you kind of have a hodgepodge of different guides, but it's I see angelic guides. I think you're very aligned with Archangel Michael and Archangel Uriel. Those are the two guides I think you're most connected with. But I think you also draw a little bit from Archangel Ariel, who deals with the environment. Okay, so you might want to look her up. Okay. But yeah, you have a beautiful set of guides. Wonderful beings. I always tell people that if you're Pleiadian, you got Pleiadian guides, you are all set. You got the best guides. I mean, because they understand what it's like here on Earth. They know what we go through. Sometimes if you have like an Andromedan guide or, Arcturians, they don't quite understand the physicality as much. But but Pleiadian guides get it, and they're so helpful. They'll hold you by your hand and kind of guide you, So the best way to connect with them is to keep your vibration high, because they like to meet us halfway. Also to meditate. When I was first learning to connect with my guides, they were telling me to meditate, and I was like, oh, I hate meditation. I don't want to do this. And I was being very resistant to it. And then they sent me to Crestone to learn meditation with these Zen Buddhist monks. And I was like, okay, I guess they're getting their message across. They want me to go learn to meditate, And my husband just kind of went along with it. He was like, oh yeah, I'll go with you, like, okay, so we're on this new adventure, but yeah, Crestone is a very spiritual location in Colorado. If you ever get the chance to check out Crestone, it's in the San Luis Mountains. I'll send you the link to the place we stayed at, because you're going to get a couple of links along with your recording. So it's a Zen Buddhist center. It's really pretty cool. You're such a beautiful soul. You're so, both you, and even your wife's energy. I haven't met her yet, but yeah, you guys are doing great work. So I'm going to do a closing prayer. I would like to thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion. I would like to thank the lords of the Akashic records for their point of view. I would like to thank the Holy Spirit of Light for all knowledge and healing. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. Your energy goes with you, and my energy stays with me.